Yeah. So this were all reference to spirit's potencies, or in other words, immortal powers, which are watching all the play, but they are aloof also at the same time. And that's why they retain their strength. Because of their aloofness, they don't get involved in the drama that unfolds, although they bear a witness to all that drama that is unfolding. And in that witnessing, in that not getting involved, they retain their original might. And we'll just read more about these potencies of the spirits or the immortal powers. Yeah, so let us take up these new lines. Yeah. So just giving us an overlap of with the last one, immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power. So they have a purity, these powers, these potencies have a purity in itself, which is conscious of its own knowing. It's all wise, it's all knowing, all these powers. And they're also powerful, they are full of this strength, almost eternal strength they have. Our strength shakes, but this is not our mortal strength. This is linked to divine will, this strength. Why? Because they calm, they repose on the eternal will. So their backing is the divine will. They don't do anything which is not in alignment with the divine will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. So apart from what is the wish or will of the divine, they have no other goal to reach, no other aim to serve. Like, us as mortal beings, as human beings living in ignorance, we have our own selfish agendas, many a times, manipulations, which we ourselves are not aware of. And we keep on being a slave to those agendas in unknowing, in our oblivion only, in our ignorance. While these powers, since they are so pure and immaculate, they are full of that divine purity. They are untouched by any selfish aim or agenda. And that helps them retain their original might and strength. So further going on, again, a description of these powers, these immortal potencies of spirits. Whoever feels ready, if we can read the lines in yellow.
Immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will. Only this law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll repeat.
That's okay. Now. Yeah,
okay.
Please
go ahead. Implacable in their timeless purity, all barter or bribe or worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer, they reckon not our virtue and our sin.
Thank you. Implacable in their timeless purity. Implacable is something referring to which is unbending, that which does not, it does not move. No tears have effect on it, no pain, no suffering has effect on it. So that is referring to this implacability, that they are unbending in their timeless purity. You cannot make them bend. As a reference, one can also just a metaphorically, one can use a kind of a symbol that imagine that you go to an government office, and usually in our offices we know that we can bribe and things can happen here and there, we can do all the jugards. But imagine that there is one fellow who you cannot bend, no matter how much bribe you may give him, but he would not bend from the truth or the purity of his work. Yeah, so it's almost like that unbending. While as human beings we kind of tend to bend under the pressure of circumstances, but these powers are implacable. They are unbending. They would not bend, no matter how much we may say, poor me, what has happened to me, how cruel is God, but they would not bend in their purity, in their following of the divine will, eternal will. All barter or bribe of worship, they refuse. So one may do sadhana, to the Lord for years and years for their own selfish agendas. Like we have heard stories of Ravan doing tapasya, ghor tapasya, and then asking Shiva, and then how Shiva gives him this shivling to carry, and he says that you should not put it down. And then somehow, because he's doing all of the sadhana because of the selfish agendas, so somehow the situations are created by the divine that he cannot utilize these powers for his own egoistic motives. Yeah, so we have many stories in our Hindu mythology which refer to this, that like story of Prahlad and Narsingh Avatar, what the boon that was given to Hiranyakashipu, and then what was the repercussion of that boon, that he was killed on the Dehleej, neither here nor there, not in the morning, not in the night, so in the Sandhya time. So everything can bend according to the divine will, but the divine will not bend. So these powers have that purity. So you cannot say that, oh my God, I have done 50 years of tapasya and now my egoistic motives should be satisfied. That would not happen. So all barter or bribe of worship, they refuse. The purity has to be maintained. There is no other way. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer. So no matter how much we may cry in our revolt that, I did this much and still I could not get what I prayed for or whatever. Ignorant prayer. Why ignorant? Because many a times we are asking things which in the longer run are not good for us. We don't know, since we live in our limited mind. We have no idea what we are actually asking today would be fruitful for us and others at all in the longer run. And that's why our prayers are mostly ignorant. We are asking for things which are just not really truly needed for growth of consciousness. And that's where we can remind ourselves of this story by Ramakrishna Paramahansa and Swami Vivekanand, where he goes and he's praying for the well-being of mother and sister. So he talks to Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He says that you have a direct connection with Ma, and why don't you pray on my behalf and ask for the well-being of my mother and sister? And then Ramakrishna has his own idea. He says that you go upstairs and you go and pray. Why don't you directly go? And he goes, and when he's in the front of Ma, then he cannot pray for that. Somehow he cannot pray for mother and sister. It appears to him too trivial. And doesn't the omnipresent reality know what is needed? So he goes and he asks for more gyan and wisdom and samaj and all that. And he comes back. Ramakrishna asks him that, did you ask? Were you able to ask? He said, no, I was not able to ask. And he goes back, a couple of times, and then he realizes actually it's futile to ask for it, because if that is required in the process of life, in their own journey, growth of consciousness, then it is a part, of the process. So this is how our prayers are, they're ignorant. But can we recognize that our prayers are mostly ignorant? And in that recognition lies the possibility of transformation also. Yeah, they reckon not our virtue and our sin. So I may, count, these are the 100 good things I did today. Now give me my boon. So I cannot bribe by doing so-called human virtues and being away from sin. It doesn't appease them. They are not here for listening to our virtues and sin and counting them on the sheet, that okay, now your egoistic satisfactions can take place. That would not happen with these powers, immaculate powers. Yeah. So if there is anything, any anecdote you want to share, any insight, please keep on sharing in between whenever you want to. Yeah, they reckon not our virtue and our sin. They're unmoved by our so-called virtues and sins. Yeah. Anyone who feels ready can go ahead then.
They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree.
Yes, thank you. So these forces, these powers, immortal powers, potencies of spirit, they don't bend to these voices which are asking and begging for stuff in mortal life. Give me this, give me that. I am so much in pain, I'm suffering so much. Why don't you give me this? So they don't bend. One can say actually they are very cold and dry if one superficially sees. Yeah, they bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. So, when we live a life of ego, it's a life lived in falsehood and error, because whenever I want my desires to get satisfied, my ambitions, my greed to be fulfilled, it's all a life of error and falsehood. And they have no concern, they have no trade, they hold no traffic, they do no exchange with such kind of a life which is lived in falsehood. It doesn't affect those powers. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. Such is their purity. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. Beautiful line, they are guardians of the silence of the truth. So they are the ones who are guarding the reign of divine truth, the divine kingdom, the silence of the truth. They are guarding that purity. And in that guarding, they also are very, very loyal, extremely loyal. In one of the couplets, Kabir says, Kabir kutta Ram ka, motiyan mera naam. So he refers to him as a dog, as loyal as a dog he is to the master. And we all know, we have heard so many stories about dogs' loyalty to their masters, even after years of being apart. They are just very, very loyal to their masters whom they have served. So such is the quality of those even human beings who have adhered to truth. And I think it comes to us in phases after we have lived a long life of falsehood and serving ego and its brutalities. I think slowly it dawns upon us that the best and the only possible way is to tie ourselves to truth, become absolutely choiceless actually. Give ourselves no choice but to follow the truth, the higher truth. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. So the command which has come forward to bring forward this manifestation, the command, the divine will that is in process of this all unfolding of life and creation and evolution, they are the keepers of that command. So they would not bend at all. Nothing can bend them. Yeah. We get bended very easily. If we notice, our vital bends us, our mind's reasoning bends us, our physical will bend us. But such is our mortal existence somehow. That and hence we end up doing a lot of adharma. We many a times, most of the times, it happens that we are unable to follow the inner guidance. We are unable to follow the truth, the alignment with the inner truth. We are not able to even recognize it. And hence we continue doing follies after follies, listening to the vital and its demands and the desires. It's very hard actually. It's as if it has become our skin. And only in a slow, gradual process of time, it kind of, the skin comes out and we are able to live in absolute alignment with our truth. It takes a lot of time since we are evolving out of ignorance. Yeah.
And regarding this worship and actually the rituals,
Yeah.
and the pujas, yeah, people are doing now. No, you can't see these type of crowds in the, I mean, in olden days actually. Now only you can see so much of crowd in all the temples and everything. I don't know, in one of the talks I heard from one of the Ramana Maharshi devotee, he is he told actually that Tiruvannamalai is famous for that Girivalam. I mean, you have to go around those kilometers around the ashram and also around the hill. So that was done previously with lot of, I mean, that inner call actually. So very less crowd. It is also very difficult to walk those kilometers. But nowadays, if you go and see that place, no, there won't be an inch to move actually. So many people there. It seems that that also become commercialized, because if you do that Girivalam, you will get something. That type of propaganda made. So people used to go in, I mean, more than thousands there actually. So you will move only very little, even you don't want, don't need to move. You will be moved by other people. Like that of actually crowd actually. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
This
Very interesting.
yeah. And also I see, I mean, in my family, another person is there, but for him, yeah, he used to go to ashram also to very devotedly, but used to do all the pujas in the temple for certain benefits. I mean, to get his daughter married, and for his son to go to US, everything actually. With lot of struggle and a lot of effort he used to do. But yeah, I couldn't understand all those things actually. At the same time, he used to go to ashram also and do meditation also. Even during darshan days, he will be in the first, I mean, row, first person in the row actually. Near the samadhi, he will sit and do meditation, and at the same time, he'll go to all the temples and do all the rituals. Till today, I can't understand that.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that is more because we human beings have this tendency for this barter system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
I give, you give.
Ah,
So the pujaris and whoever is there, they show the lollipop that you give, do this, and you will get this.
yeah.
It's more attractive for them because barter system has been from time immemorial, and so they think, no, I'll give this. Like I have a lot of friends who do this. There's something in Gujarati is called badha. The same Hindi meaning applies. कि मैं शक्कर छोड़ देती हूँ. I leave sugar for maybe 2 months, and my son should get a seat in XYZ place.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yes.
people do it. They do it with such devotion. I have done it once in my life, and then during that, I'm lucky. It's good I did it, because during the period which I did it for those few days, I started to read what mother had to say. And mother said exactly reverse, that do not subject the body to
Yeah.
stress for some mental reason that you think will be fulfilled. She very clearly says.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah,
Yes,
you know,
Ravi.
just one sentence. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. Sri Aurobindo doesn't say they are the guardians of the truth, which means that it's a very, very profound. Silence is, the truth doesn't have to defend itself by proclaiming something or talking about it. It just has to be silent. I mean, very, very profound.
Yeah,
Thank you.
beautiful. Yeah. I think it's really powerful, this line that you brought up. It also would connect me with how we in life we are always in the mind trying to connect the dots in our even in our lives, and we see that most of the times the dots never get really connected because there are so many forces in play that we really are unable to get all the dots connected and find the reason for this happening, that happening, and this and that. And the mind goes on churning and churning and churning. And yet, in the middle of all this, there is also a place in us which is absolutely silent, unmoved, and very content, even with those dots unresolved. I think there, Mother and Sri Aurobindo ask us to go again and again, tap into that space and make that our reality rather than all the chaos of the surface happenings. So it's a very,
very true, Monica.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband tried to follow that actually, that person's example, but everything ended in failure for him.
yeah.
That is a good thing, no?
Good thing, yes.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
a good thing, because
Yeah.
it made me to go, for me, it is to go deep inside. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's ultimately we realize that it's good that all our endeavors fail.
Yeah.
So that we can now go inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such as divine comedy. No one can laugh about it later. Yeah. Okay.
This statement of silence of the truth, which is actually, it's the thunder of silence. You know, it's such kabhi bolta nahi hai. It stands its own ground.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
Yeah. And also full of, pregnant with possibilities. It's not a silence of tamas, it's the silence of truth, which is
And they don't
full
need
of,
to defend
yeah,
themselves.
yeah.
No defense.
Yeah. Great. So anyone who feels ready, if one can, I don't know if, did we read these 3 lines, a deep surrender?
Chitra ji has to read.
Okay.
Yeah. A deep surrender is the source of might. A still identity, their way to know. Motionless is their action like a sleep.
Yeah. Thank you. Again, referring to that couplet by Kabir ji, Kabir Kutta Ram Ka. So once a dog has chosen his master, then he would do anything. He can actually get killed, but he would not betray his master, such as the loyalty. I think many things have been heard even about horses. I think horses are quite in this line also, but we have heard much about dogs, how loyal they are to their masters. And then they surrender. Once they surrender, then there is no question. Now they will not have second thoughts about whether to choose my master, whether to go for the other master who is a better one. Now the second thought doesn't come. So it's almost a state of a choicelessness. That when truth is to be seen, you're choiceless. You don't discuss about that. And I think this choicelessness is the same choicelessness which we heard here, actually, when we listen to Krishnamurti talking, how he talks about understanding, looking at desire, looking at ambition, looking at greed, everything, being very, very observant to all the movements of our life. Now, there is a certain choicelessness there also, that in observation, I'm not going to get biased. That just because I used to say this 1 year ago, now I will not be observing really factually, because then I would be appearing like as a liar, that, oh, you used to say it 1 year ago. Now you are, again changing your stance. So when truth has to be observed, when anything has to be observed, any movement, we have to be very, very unbiased in our observation, because otherwise the emotions come in, your own selfish motives come in, and we cannot really look at the fact of things. So there requires a deep surrender to truth if we are to follow this path. A deep surrender that if I will, no matter if my own selfish agendas may be exposed, doesn't matter. I may go through shame, doesn't matter. But truth should come out. And Mother also shares that hypocrisy is the biggest failure on spiritual path, that you are dishonest in recognizing your own movements, which was the ugly movement, what was the movement that you did out of any agenda, personal agenda, trying to manipulate things, or what was simply said. So we have to be really, because nobody else can be responsible for my hypocrisy. It's my area. Nobody can kind of peep inside my thoughts and feelings. Yeah. So a deep surrender is their source of might. Now, when we are only surrendered to truth and nothing else, we don't even save our own patterns and tendencies. We don't even stand by our own side, but we take the side of truth. Then what happens is we reclaim our power back. We become as powerful as the divine. We share, we partake the eternal strength and might. Why? Because we have nothing to defend. I am not defending even myself. Let me go to tear and shame, but I will not defend even my own patterns and tendencies. So that kind of a warriorness, warrior spirit is what we need on this path. And these powers, why are they so powerful? Why are they so unbending? Because they are choicelessly surrendered to truth. Choicelessly, they don't now discuss about it. They don't have second thoughts ki, oh, let me bend myself for one day, and tomorrow I'll follow the truth. They don't say like that. So they are immaculate, full of purity, and that's why they're full of might, because their might is eternal's might. A deep surrender is their source of might. They have no selfish aims and agendas. A still identity, their way to know. And the stillness in them, owing to the fact that they are solely relying on the divine will. They have no selfish agendas. There is no restlessness or any disturbing movement in their being. That's why they are still in their consciousness, full of power, still, absolutely still. And owing to this stillness, they can know all the things, having an identity with those things. Why I cannot know the other person? Because I have my own selfish agendas. So those agendas become a brick wall between me and the other person. And that those agendas also cause a lot of restlessness in my consciousness. But when we become absolutely silent and still and rely on nothing but the divine will, then I have nothing to preserve. I'm not defending anything. And in that stillness, through identity, I can know things. I think this is how Savitri, when we talk about Savitri, the images that Sri Aurobindo uses in explaining to us all that he has been through. So he says, I read it, I don't know where, that he says that it is through identity that I know that this is like this. It's not that I'm imagining things and telling you about these. I have been there, done that, like totally one with that movement. And that's how I can talk about it in such purity and details. A still identity, their way to know. This is how they know, because they are still, they can know deeply what is happening at every level. Motionless is their action, like asleep. Now, when we are asleep, there is no motion in, especially deep sleep, there is no motion in the surface of mind, vital, the outer mental, the outer vital, the body, absolutely still. And yet something is awake. Something is awake which witnesses the dreams. That's why we can recollect. So something was there which was not asleep. And this consciousness, this at times we also call it as awareness. This awareness never sleeps. It's almost like remains as half trance, like Vishnu lying in on his Shayya in Shir Sagar. He's in half trance state. So he's not fully awake, but yet he's not sleeping also. Motionless is their action. And it's a very calm action that these forces do, the powers do. It's a very calm action. Why? Because they're not in a hurry. Just like we human beings, we are always in a vital hurry. My desire has to be fulfilled. My ambition has to be fulfilled. There is a hurry for something to happen. But these powers, owing to their large vision, their action is very quiet, almost motionless. He says, motionless is their action. Things are getting done, and yet it does not appear that they are getting done through some movement. Is their action like a sleep? And yet things are moving on. Yeah. So such is the power of these potencies of spirits or immortal powers, which are actually upholding the whole of creation. Yeah, anyone who feels ready can go next.
At peace regarding the trouble beneath the stars, deathless, watching the works of death and chance, immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, untouched while the long map of fate unrolls. They look on our struggle sorry, with impartial eyes, and yet without them, cosmos could not be.
Yeah. So they are at peace, since they are the keepers of the silence of truth, guardians of the silence of truth. They live only for the truth only. They are at peace in that ocean of vastness of peace, silence of truth. Regarding the trouble beneath the stars. Now, beneath the stars lies the earth. Now, earth is full of troubles, full of pain, full of toil, full of turmoil. But they are at peace. The troubles of the earth don't move them. And it's not that in their coldness, it doesn't move them. It does not move them because they know the larger picture. They have all the vision charted out, why this is happening, why this must happen, that has to happen. Everything is known to them. And that's why they are at peace. We are not at peace. We are restless because we don't know the larger picture. Owing to the fact that we live in the surface consciousness mostly, and hence we suffer so much, not knowing the larger plan. And when we look at it in bits and pieces, our surface mind tries to connect the dots, then it appears like really vague. Like, why would this happen? Why would this happen? Because just only the fact that we don't have the larger picture. So they are at peace. These powers are at peace regarding the trouble beneath the stars. Deathless, they are beyond death. They are beyond the process of mortality, immortality. Deathless, watching the works of death and chance. So they very well know why death is necessary in evolution. When a soul decides, okay, now in this body, I can do this much. Now I'll need to take another body if I have to continue my work. So death is there. Since the physical body also grows fragile and weak, so death comes so that the process can go on. But the human mind does not look at it like that. We cry when things are taken away through death, since we do not have the larger vision in front. Watching the works of death and chance. Now, chance happenings, they also are part of the larger tapestry of the larger higher plan. All that they watch, and yet they are beyond the chance and the death. They're deathless. Immobile, seeing the millenniums pass. So in eternity, there is enough time. For us, 80 years is a long time, 90 years is a long time. But for them, seated in eternity, for them, millenniums pass. They see all the drama unfolding itself. And yet they're immobile with all the world wars after world wars happening. So many atrocities done in the name of religion and politics and power, whatnot. And yet they are seated immobile. Immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, untouched while the long map of fate unrolls. As if where Sri Aurobindo says, there is meaning in each curve and line. And we human beings are in haste many a times in our lives. Why is this not happening? Why am I not getting this visa? Or anything can happen, which can make us restless. But since they are seated far above and looking at the grander plan, they are untouched while the long map of fate unrolls. Because each thing has a purpose. The only thing that matters is growth of consciousness. And for that, one has to really go through so much of even trauma, turmoil, losing loved ones, all that is necessary in this process. We can't really stop it. And all that makes us grow in our consciousness, expand in our consciousness. So they watch untouched while the long map of fate unrolls. They look on our struggle with impartial eyes. Now they don't have any preference whether, oh, this should happen, no, people should have settled families and no one should lose anyone. For them, it is unimportant. This is totally trivial. All that matters is the constant growth of consciousness. And in front of that, everything goes. Now that may appear to us human mortals very cruel at times, that why I needed to go through a disease or this or that, a relationship issue, but all is necessary, And if we really look back at it, after a few years, we see that it's how much necessary all those challenges were in order to make us progress. So they look on our struggle with impartial eyes, and yet without them, cosmos could not be. So these are the powers which are upholding the cosmos. And it is only to the fact that they are very immobile. They are immovable, immutable. The purity is maintained. Their strength is divine. That is the very fact that they can uphold the cosmos, the whole play. Imagine that I am a parent and my child may be going through some turmoil. Now, if I become too involved in the drama of the child, I will lose my strength. I will become weaker. I'll give into the play of emotions. So when the child actually would need strength, I would not even be able to give a backing or a support to the child, since I've lost my own strength in that process, getting too involved. So almost like that, the divine does not get involved in the play, although he is involved at many, many levels, but he is also aloof. And that aloofness gives that strength, that he's untouched by the tears and the pain. Because the moment I get touched by the tears and the pain, I become weak. So how would I be able to support the child? So without them being still, calm and silent, full of strength, the cosmic play, the whole movement that is happening could not be. So they are as if they're providing a solid foundation, unmovable foundation on which all the play can happen. They're providing us this huge, vast space which is unmovable, in which all the drama can happen. Anything you want to share? Anyone? Okay, so anyone who wants to go next?
Impervious to desire and doom and hope, their station of inviolable might. Moveless upholds the world's enormous task. Its ignorance is by their knowledge lit. Its yearning lasts by their indifference.
Yes. Impervious, when we were kids, we used to read this in science books. Impervious rock, a rock which is not porous, like a sponge is porous, it kind of absorbs what is coming from outside. But impervious rocks are, no matter how much water keeps on falling on them, they just remain dry, no water can make them moist. So these forces, these powers which are stationed in immortality, they're stationed above death, stationed in immovability, they're impervious, as if nothing, no effect happens on them of desire, our desires, dooms, and hopes. Many a times going through our own life, we almost many a times we also say that, why are you not fulfilling this desire of mine? So he says that nothing, you cannot move it for your own egoistic, selfish desire, because maybe that is not required for your progress. so that it should be given to you, granted to you. So they are totally unaffected by whatever I may be desiring, whatever doom or depression I may be going through, or whatever hopes I may have from people, life, and situation. Totally impervious, unaffected. It does not moisten them. One can say almost cold and dry. Or from surface, it looks like they're cold and dry. And then we can also find ourselves saying how cruel God can be, because we don't have the larger picture. Now, God has given me a disease, but I don't know what this disease is going to, give me in this life. How soften, how how porous it is going to make me, the hard stone that I had become. So we don't know the purpose of things in our lives. Yeah, and so we keep on desiring for our sweets and candies and lollies, but they are not granted. Or maybe mother says, once in a while I grant you, but I grant you only for you to see that even when it is granted, nothing really happens or changes. So that you can have a taste. Okay, mother, please give me this. Okay, 10 times mother doesn't give, but the 11th time mother says, okay, I grant you the lolly. Now have a taste. And then on the 12th day, you are empty again. So what really did happen? Yeah. So impervious to desire and doom and hope, their station of inviolable might. Now their strength, since it is one with the eternal's strength, it is inviolable. It cannot be lessened, dampened, or affected. A strength which can never get either accentuated nor reduced or lessened to any degree. They are stationed, they are static there. They are as if they are anchored in that inviolable might. Moveless upholds the world's enormous task. This is what we were talking in the earlier lines, that this movelessness in their station of inviolable strength, this is what upholds the whole toiling process of the world. Because if they become affected by the pain and suffering, if they become affected by our desires and hope, then they will also become weak. So who will uphold? We need someone to uphold. You may have seen many a times we have examples, similar examples, not exactly, but in our families, that there would be one or the other fellow who would be actually aloof while all the turmoil and drama in a family is unfolding. And that person is like a solid rock, a foundation that one can, that base on. Yeah. Its ignorance is by their knowledge lit. Its yearning lasts by their indifference. Now the ignorance of the world is lit by their knowledge. Just because I see a lamp burning in front of me, all the time it is burning, all the time, I've never seen it going off. It gives me inspiration to climb. So the presence of these powers, the knowledge and the light and attraction of these powers, full of purity beyond death, and strength, it affects my ignorant mind. It makes it leap forward toward the powers, to the potencies, the charm of the spirit, as if I'm attracted to it. Its ignorance, the world's ignorance, is by their knowledge, by the power or the knowledge of powers, these immutable powers that we're talking of, as if the ignorance is lit up. Something more happens in from the usual mortal human life. Its yearning lasts by their indifference. Now, yearning has been given a special place, especially for human beings. And I think Bulle Shah says, Jistan birhana upaje, sotan jan masan. So in a body, if you are a human being and you are not yearning for higher, for growth, for light, then you are as good as a dead fellow. Yeah. So if being human, you do not crave to progress, what is the purpose of you being human? So this yearning that all of us have in one or the other sense, we all have yearning towards perfection, yearning to have more light, more beauty, more wisdom in us. World's yearning lasts by their indifference, owing to the fact that these powers are aloof and very indifferent and unaffected. Their light always shines. Yeah, that gives us world, so that the world can continue yearning towards this perfection, which he sees again and again. That yes, I may not yet be there, but I know that is my possibility. Yes, I know that I am now entangled in so-called human love, which is full of mixture, but I know there is also a possibility to move towards divine love. Yeah. So as if it makes us yearn and go towards its beauty, the presence of these powers and beauties. Yeah, Swapna, you wanted to read?
As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breaths draw the small to adventure vast, their aloofness drives man to surpass himself.
Yes. Again, very beautiful lines, very beautiful, very attractive. Now, imagine that you are looking at a chair. Now, a chair invites us to sit. Just the mere presence of the chair. It's very inviting presence. For example, we are looking at an infant. The mere presence of an infant asks you to become soft and kind. You can't help it. It's not that you're doing it knowingly. So the mere presence of mountains in front of us, something which is high, a ladder or a mountain, it invites us, it draws us so that I can climb it. Now the mountain is not saying that come, climb on me, but just by its mere presence, it is inviting in nature. So as the height draws the low ever to climb. So we are low, we are very little creatures, and the presence of mountains is drawing us towards them. That let us, so many people die on Mount Everest, but still they go as if it's so inviting. The height of that mountain, the might of that mountain, it's so inviting to us low beings. As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breadths draw the small to adventure vast. Now look at a vast piece of land or ocean. You are invited to that vastness. You feel like, okay, let me cruise through this vastness. Let me swim through this vastness. Let me travel depths and breadths on the land. So there is some attraction about this vastness and the height, which these powers have. The immortal and immutable powers, the potencies of the spirits, they are so attractive that one kind of gets invited towards them. You can't help it. You can't resist not getting attracted towards pure beauty. Looking at a sunset. No matter how busy you may be, if your eyes fall on a beautiful sunset, you can't help but get attracted towards it. Yeah. As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breadths draw the small to adventure vast, their aloofness, the aloofness of these potencies of spirits, or the aloofness of the divine, aloofness of the immortal powers, their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. Now, this reminds me that Mother, in her commentaries on the Life Divine, she shares that only man has this power to self-exceed. Now, a dog, consider a dog. Now, a dog may be absolutely innocent, beautiful, and totally in the psychic, maybe psychic shining through a dog. Yeah. But he remains a dog forever. He cannot exceed himself. And that goes for all the other creatures. Only why human being is considered so special, why human birth is considered so special, because being human, I have the capacity to surpass myself and become divine. This is not granted to any other living being so far. That's why human birth is special. It's not that human beings at the moment are wonderful. We are at the moment really undivine, mostly. But we have the capacity to self-exceed, surpass himself. Whenever we are inspired by something, inspired by acts of courage, acts of heroism, something in us moves. And what is that something in us which moves? So mother says that whenever you get inspired and feel admiration to something very beautiful and inspirational, that is actually the movement of a psychic. It's a psychic movement. Many of us do not get inspired. So the psychic is closed, like it's walled, hiding. But many of us also get, wow, if that person can do it, this must also be possible for me. How beautiful is that, gesture or kindness or courage or heroism, selfless acts, whatever. So that in us, which gets inspired and feels an admiration towards all that is high and pure and beautiful, that is the movement of psychic. And mother says that we must always preserve this, that wow, that is also possibility. And that's why human being is so special. It can always self-exceed. Although we have to move from near to far, as mother says, that knowing all my weaknesses, noticing all the ugly movements in me, I have the power to turn them to beauty. I don't need to go into guilt or shame just because so much of weakness and ugliness resides in me. I have the power also to turn them to beauty, self-exceeding oneself. So this is very powerful, that only a man has the ability to surpass himself. So are we spending time on surpassing ourselves? That is what mother would call as divine collaboration. That yes, in nature, the movement will happen. So you will get all the blows so that you can make the progress ahead. But are you collaborating consciously? Are you trying to consciously surpass and self-exceed yourself, leaving your past behind, leaving all the past selves that you have lived behind, and moving to greater and higher and beauty and purity? So this has to be done consciously, not the unconscious movement of nature, but a very conscious movement, conscious effort from our side. Yeah, so I think we can stop after these lines, last 3 lines, anyone who feels ready.
Our passion heaves to wed the eternal calm. Our dwarf search mind to meet the omniscience light. Our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotence force. Beautiful line. Yeah.
Yes. So when we see or feel or sense something beautiful, and we all have a touch of that, we all have a glimpse of that, it makes us passionate, as if, we in mystic tradition, all of us are ladies, all of us are naris, women who are going to wed the eternal Purusha, the divine. So all of us human beings are ladies in mystic tradition, and our beloved is the divine himself. So as if whenever we touch a glimpse or a beauty, or, something of the beauty, something of higher than us, some high possibility, as if just like an ocean swells up, and tides up when a full moon is there. That's how our human passion, it heaves to wed the eternal calms. You get attracted magnetically to that silence, purity, and beauty. Just like how we get attracted to the mother. Those of us who are having a connection with the mother, you cannot help but get magnetically attracted to her. Her love, her presence, her beauty, the consciousness present in her words, the clarity present in her words. You cannot help but get attracted. So you move, the passion heaves to wed the eternal calm. Our dwarf search mind to meet the omniscience light. So Sri Aurobindo also has shared many a times that our mind, our present mind, the ordinary consciousness in which we live, it's like a little torchlight given to us in a huge universe. And with that, we try to make sense of it, sense of the whole universe. Now, obviously, we fail again and again. So this dwarf search mind, that also what it wants, what does the mind want? Mind wants knowledge. Mind wants to know the truth. Now, the light of the omniscient, the light of the all-knowing, that there is something possible as divine, which is omniscient, it knows everything, antaryami. Now, the mind also gets attracted. That what is this thing, that I know very little, I know in bits and pieces, but what is beyond me that knows everything? So the mind also heaves, it tides up, it wells to meet this omniscient light, all-knowing, all-pervading light. Our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotence force. So this is what this compels us to do. The presence of beauty, the presence of something or the other of the divine that we have sensed in our life. It compels us forward. It makes our helpless hearts, we feel so weak many a times when things are not happening what we would like in our life to happen. We feel so helpless, our desires are not getting fulfilled. We are not getting the people that we wanted in our life. Job is not going the right way. The family does not agree to you much. Helpless hearts. To enshrine, it makes our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotence force, a force which is all powerful, which is not weak. While we in our helpless hearts are weak, a desire makes us weak. That's why Mother talks about desirelessness. Why? Because being in a desire, look how weak it makes us. We have all been through that. We lose our might and strength when we follow a dictate of a desire. And when we are able to keep the inner temple, the shrine, immaculate, clean, neat, and tidy, and let nothing affect, give ourselves, offer ourselves every day more and more to the divine, that, okay, my life is belonging to you more and more. Don't even listen to me. I may, in my ignorance, cry and say, no, stop. But don't even listen to me. My life belongs to you. In that, we regain our power back. When we give ourselves, when we offer ourselves continuously to the divine. Knowing that there may be desires, but putting them aside. That we know that I don't know what is the best for me. So I don't know whether I should follow the desire or not. I have followed it enough, but I want to do something else now. So can I just keep my desires in the pocket, side, maybe at the bedside, and not follow their dictates, offer myself, offer my time to the divine, and let the mystery unfold itself. It's hard and challenging at times, especially when we are in the midst of desires and our own ideas. But I think that's the only way to have strength in us. And that's the only way to have a beautiful life, that whenever we recognize, we continuously offer our life to the divine, because he knows the best what is to be done in this life. Only he knows. Yeah, so any reflections, any insights? We can stop here. Okay. So thank you. In that case, no reflections.
Thanks,
you.
Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.